Associated Press is reporting Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin meet for 2.5 hours at Alaska summit to discuss possible end to Russia-Ukraine war. Joint base Elmendorf-Richardson, Alaska. President Donald Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin met for about 2.5 hours on Friday at a summit in Alaska that started with a handshake, a smile, and a ride in the presidential limousine. It also had an overflight by a B-2 bomber, 2 F-35s, and 2 F-22. So that's something that they left out, and that's worth mentioning. An unusually warm reception for a U.S. adversary responsible for launching the greatest land war in Europe since 1945. They plan to hold a joint news conference after talking together with top advisors behind closed doors on efforts to end Russia's war in Ukraine. When they greeted each other, they gripped hands for an extended period of time on a red carpet rolled out at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage. As they chatted, Putin grinned and pointed skyward, where B-2s and F-22 military aircraft designed to oppose Russia during the Cold War flew overhead. Reporters nearby yelled, "President Putin, will you stop killing civilians?" That sounds like activists. Just want to point that out. And Russia's leader put his hands up to his ears as though to indicate he couldn't hear them. Trump and Putin then shared the U.S. presidential limo known as the Beast for a short ride to their meeting site, with Putin offering a broad smile as the vehicle rolled past the cameras. So we've got a possible scoop, or not scoop, but we've got a possible, there's a possibility that Bret Baier or Sean Hannity will be talking to Donald Trump on Air Force One, and we'll get updates to you guys as soon as we get them. If they actually do an interview on Air Force One, we'll cut to that for a few minutes when it happens, probably around 9 o'clock, because that's when Hannity's shows run. But this isn't a historic meeting because it's the first time that Putin's ever been to Alaska, and I think it's the first time that the U.S. has met with Putin in since
10 years at least.
10 years, something like that.
So I read that earlier.
So yeah, so it's possible that there will be some kind of peace development, but I don't think most people went in expecting an actual resolution. And I certainly don't think anyone expects Putin to withdraw from the areas that he's taken from Ukraine, and that includes the Donbass. There are people out there that think there's not going to be, or there is no reason to have any kind of peace unless Putin promises to pull back, not just from the Donbass and the areas that he's taken since 2022, but also if he has to leave the Crimea, the Crimea area and stuff, which I don't think that's even remotely possible. But I'm curious to know your thoughts.
I'm very happy that this is happening. In general, I was kind of crying out for this a couple of weeks ago that we got to end this war somehow. And I think Putin's been pretty clear, although the American media seems to have obfuscated his demands, that he wants all the land east of the Donbass River. He's looking for a geographical border. It's probably the most stabilizing thing he can do. Because if you guys talked about this through the week, if you draw arbitrary borders with just a straight line across a flat area, there's inevitably going to be conflict because it's an easy place to attack. When it's a river or a mountain, it's much easier just to, that's my border.
I think that's dependent on the people involved.
It is too, because the northern U.S. borders with Canada.
Yeah,
I thought of that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't expect there to be a significant conflict between the United States and Canada.
I don't expect it either, but it's not along a geographical
I guess
border.
neither one of us attacked the other one.
Never has happened to this point.
What are you talking about?
The Canadians and the Americans never went to war.
I guess it was technically the British, but there was fighting the War of 1812. It was for
the jury's out on that border, but I've thought about that too. That arbitrary border between Canada and the United States, like it's not a defensible border. But anyway, the Donbass River is. So if Putin takes everything east of the Donbass, which they already have control of, and then they create a land bridge down into Crimea so that they have warm water sea access and they can improve their GDP by 30% because now they can trade into the Mediterranean. I think that's the whole purpose and the point. I'm all about it, man.
So you
I'm
think
all about just making an alliance.
So is it your sense that it's just an economic play?
Yes, 100%. He's doing it for Russia's economics.
That actually is contrary to what he said to Tucker Carlson, though.
What do you say?
When he was talking to Tucker Carlson, he was bringing up the history of Ukraine and how, to the Russians, Ukraine is part of Russia because the Kievan Rus, I guess, were the original Russians, and they were from Kiev, and they went to Moscow, and there's a long history between these two countries. Now, I'm not incredibly well read on the Russian-Ukrainian history, but I know Ukraine and Russia have got very, very deep history.
Right.
Russia actually came from Ukraine, so it's my sense that whereas I'm not disputing the argument you're making about the economic benefit to him, but I do think that this is more than just an economic play.
Yeah. I think this is a more surface level opinion, but it's just nice to see a president who's not a houseplant, basically, get together with a world leader and assert dominance. I feel like if this was Biden meeting with Putin, he probably would have agreed with everything that Putin wanted in exchange for like an ice cream cone. So it's just nice to see Trump be able to come together. I think it's very monumental. So I'm curious as to see what was decided.
Yeah, we're gonna jump to this right here. This is Putin departs Alaska after historic summit, right? What is it?
This from earlier?
No, this is just part of. I brought up to you to say it's just part of the story. Like with this, they've basically taken all of. Hold on. They've taken all of the area that they said they were going to take, as far as like they wanted. People have argued because they have the lithium, the coal, the offshore gas, all that stuff. They've currently occupied the areas that are like rich in this rare mineral earth, and that I just bring this up.
Are these the areas that the United States was looking to make the deals with Ukraine about, like the rare earth minerals and stuff like that?
From what I understand, this map right here, from what I understand, this is what I saw as well earlier. This is from an article from Fox News from 2 days ago, I think. But this map right here also shows all the areas they've taken, including north here. But this being the highly wealthy, like oil
mineral-rich areas,
rare mineral areas. I just wanted to bring that up.
You got that map on screen? See that the red border along the left, I believe, is the river. That's the Donbass River.
Sure.
All the way up.
Yeah, I mean, look,
so.
Yeah,
that's
stop it on a river. That's the way to do it.
I mean, that's
should have done that in '89 when they split it up. Sorry, Phil.
Well, that's the point that we were making earlier. Like, I don't see Putin giving any of this back.
Right, because I'm looking, and it seems like Ukraine was actually part of Russia. I knew this, but
Yes, it was.
in 1991 was when they declared their independence. After
That was the Soviet Union falling apart. Yeah.
Right. And then the oligarchs came in and kind of split it apart. As far as I can tell, I think they intentionally took that area away from the Russian part of the split up because they didn't want to give the hegemony to Russia. They didn't want it to just become another Soviet Union right away. So too much economic power if we give them Mediterranean access.
There is a distinction between Ukrainians and Russians, right? The language is not the same. There is an actual Ukrainian language. They are different people. Russians think that the Ukrainians are Russian, whereas Ukrainians are more like we're Ukrainians, and so the Ukrainians feel like they would be subjugated. The Russians feel like they would be bringing the Ukrainians back into the Russian fold. I mean, this is something that goes back hundreds of years. I don't know, like I'm not at all claiming to be some kind of expert on this, but I know that it's a very deep history these two countries have. And all of the times that there's been invasions of Russia, the two major times, which would be Napoleon and Hitler, they went right through Ukraine.
Yeah, we were talking before the show. I was talking with about this, and it was the Germans had three armies when they went east into Russia: the Northern Army, the Center Army, and the South. The Army South group had very little problem going through Ukraine. That was the easiest the Germans had, was in the South, because it's so flat. You know, in the North, they're up there. At least it was very cold, very, very messed up and muddy.
What time period? Because I mean, they were like in the middle of a full-out controlled famine by Stalin at the time, so they probably didn't have much trouble going through Ukraine.
Talking about the Holodomor? Yeah, they starved out.
I don't think the Holodomor was during World War II.
No, it was like that part of that 5-year plan of getting socialism into the countryside.
But to the point of the Ukrainians feeling like there's a distinction between the Russians, right? The Russians are like, well, they're part of Russia, but according to the Ukrainians, the Soviets, the Russians, starved them. And
right, I was thinking
that
like the part of Russia that they don't want that.
No, well,
they good recent memory for Ukraine.
Yeah, the Ukrainians don't want it at all. I mean, there's a reason why there's so many Nazis in Ukraine. It's because, according to Ukraine, the Nazis kicked the Russians out.
Yeah, the Soviets at the time.
Soviets. Well, I think they were.
They might have been Soviet Russians.
Now that's not intended to be a defense of the Nazis, but the reason that there are so many that they have a positive view of the Nazis as opposed to the communists is because the communists did the Holodomor. You know, they killed millions of Ukrainians, and the Nazis kicked them out. And I don't know. Again, I don't have the most deep knowledge of this, but the Nazis were actually less brutal to the
That's kind of what I have
than the
read
Russians were
as well, but like I only know as much as I've read. So
Yeah. So
Soviet central planning was nasty, and you see it in China right now. It's disgusting. I mean, I don't like it. I don't think anybody in Russia wants. Well, I would imagine most sane critical thinkers don't want another instance of centralized planning because that's where the Holodomor comes from. When you have a central government that can decide that 80,000 people aren't going to get fed tonight, you got a real problem. Those 80,000 people should be governing themselves. I know you want to work together with your federal government and stuff, but local government. So, I don't think those Russians I don't think they want it. This is another. I'm done.
No, it's a huge
People
tangent we
make-
could go down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.